Good morning and welcome to today's verse. Today's verse comes to us from the book of Romans 13, verse 1. And it says this: "Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and all authorities that exist have been appointed by God." It seems today that so few people like this word called government, even though we enjoy the benefits of government, law and order, protection and services, etc. But then there are folk that want to rebel against the governing authorities. That we who are believers are to be good citizens of earth and of heaven. We are to obey the governing authorities that have been appointed over us because they have been ordained by God. It does not matter by whom they were appointed as far as who elected them. It doesn't matter whether we consider them to be just or unjust, whether we consider them to be legitimate or illegitimate. Remember, in Paul's day, they had the Roman government over them, and yet they were expected to pray for all men, to include the king. As long as these authorities, these rulers, are operating within the civil realm that they have been established, we are to obey them. But when the laws of civil government conflict with the explicit commands of God, then we who are Christians, we must say this: we ought to obey God rather than man. Notice how Paul linked our ability to obey governing authorities that we can see to our obedience to obeying God, whom we cannot see. Consider verse 2, where he says this: "Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves." We demonstrate to the world whose we are, that we are children of God, and that we're good citizens because we obey the governing authorities that are appointed over us. I often tell people that I'm a rules person. That is, that I follow the rules to the best of my ability. I may not always agree with the rules, and I make that known. But at the end of the day, I'm going to follow the rules whether you see me or not. Whether it is in front of you or behind you, I'm going to follow the rules. It is God's will that government exists and that persons have authority to rule within the state. God ordained government as well as he ordained the institution of family and the church. In these institutions, we demonstrate our obedience to God by obeying our parents, by obeying our church leaders, as we do by obeying governing authorities that have been appointed over us. We obey not necessarily because we agree with all their rules, but because God said so. Now listen, I don't know about you, but I'm sure there's plenty of you that grew up did not agree with all the rules that your parents had. You know, those rules such as cleaning your room and doing your chores, eating all your food, be home by 11. We didn't agree with all of that, but yet we did it because they were our parents, and God expects us to obey. It actually commands us to obey our parents. I'm sure that there are plenty of things that go on in the institution of the church. You know, those very important things, such as the positioning of the piano and the color of the carpet and the order of service that cause all of these church meetings outside in the parking lot. There are plenty of things that happen like that, but we are to obey as long our church leaders are not God. But as long as they follow Christ, we are to follow them. Again, we are to submit to the governing authorities. That's our responsibility. But those who are in positions of leadership within government, they are to do the right thing, because one day they will give an account. To God be the glory for the great things he has done. I pray that you would meditate upon this verse, that you would put it into practice. I pray that you would have a great day as you go throughout the rest of your day. And then tune in again tomorrow. Yes, as we consider today's verse. Amen.